There's some dental schools that are literally like 450K.
Yep.
I think dental school is way more expensive than it used to be. Like,
Yep. What were your GPA and DAT scores, if you don't mind me asking?
I definitely don't try to shy away from sharing those. Dang, I can't even tell you how many seems like.
So how important is it that the dean is behind you guys, specifically black minority kids?
I've heard many stories about people who've been in dental school, been in medical school, about, certain professors, certain staff, they might treat them differently based on the fact that they're black. We just learn to deal with. But to do it in dental school and to have to go through that in medical school can be tough. It's already rigorous coursework.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of STEM for Them. If you don't know who I am, my name is Adam Khan, and I am the host of this podcast that I created called STEM for Them. For those of you who don't know what this podcast is about, it's for those of you looking to get into a career of the STEM field. I know, it sounds boring, blah, blah, blah. I get it. It's never too late to go into a side hustle or a career that you've always wanted to go into or didn't know about. So I bring on unique guests who can share you their stories and experiences of what it's like to be in their field. Mostly it's the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, but we go outside of that as well. Today we got a guest who is a close friend of mine. His name is Bryce Coleman. He's a first-year dental student at the University of Michigan, and we talk about some of the dilemmas of being a black dental student. In addition to that, he talks about how he got a full ride to dental school. So thank you for joining me on this podcast, and I hope you really like it. If you have any questions, please contact us in the link in the description. And like I always say, silence that background noise. We got some merch coming out very soon, guys. I'm so excited. I'm ready for you guys to look at this. In the meantime, until we get this merch store set out, enjoy this podcast. First of all, congratulations on getting into dentistry school. That's the first thing, man. That's a big thing. Yeah, I wanted to talk about really just who you are to me. You're my good friend, but also I have a lot of admiration for you because of what you've gone through. And I've seen you go through a good amount, through your undergrads, some of the successes and failures that you've had, and continuing to go on and just say, you know what, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and still apply to dentistry school and do all these things. You're a part of your community too, which is something that a lot of people forget to be a part of, that's one big part. But tell other people about, who else you really are. I know you, but the audience members don't really know who you are.
I feel like a lot was expected from me as a kid from my father, my parents, just being the firstborn between my mother and father. They talk about a lot of time, like they don't know what to do. They're scared. There's the first kid. So my dad always says that, man, I wanted to do the right thing. And I did some things that my father may not have done right, and that I could have improved on, but you went through that. And I definitely went through some things, with just like struggling with like confidence in elementary school and middle school and, understanding who I am. And it's been a long journey just being comfortable with, who I am and what I represent. I think part of me has always wanted to, kind of steer away from, my background and who I am. I've always been known as just kind of like a kind person. And I think, I've gone through times in my life where I didn't want to be, kind, and I wanted to like break out of that, characteristic of mine and kind of be somebody different, who people deem people who get more respect or people who are, less forgiving, less kind to people, and just kind of just have that, boss mentality. But, I've learned throughout my life and growing and maturing that, you can be even more respected just by being kind and just being yourself and, treating other people respect, and you'll get respect. And so I've appreciated the journey I've gone through that, throughout my years growing up and just figuring out who I am. And, I'm really just a person who likes to help people. I really enjoy like just helping people. Even being here, like people think it's a big deal for me to come up to Kennesaw, Atlanta to hang out with you guys, but I do it because I like hanging out with you guys and I like spending time with my friends from college. I like seeing how other people are doing. I've never been a person to, just kind of talk bad about people or feel like I'm higher than others. I'm always looking to enjoy other people's accomplishments and praising them because that's what keeps me going, and that's what keeps me like going like, okay, let me keep doing what I'm supposed to be doing to be a better version of myself. And so I just always love that about me, and that I'm actually now able to express that confidently and be that person, instead of trying to shy away from it and be somebody else. So that's what I enjoy.
Well, that's exactly why, we're friends in general. we,
Yeah.
we listen to each other. And I think
Exactly.
that's a big part of having a friendship that can do that.
Yeah.
But that's how I think we kind of started off in the beginning. We just kind of listened to each other, kind of hear each other out.
Hmm.
And then from there, we understood the different types of things that we needed from each other. Sometimes we needed an ear to listen to. Or sometimes we just needed, just advice.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was good to kind of get that out there. It's different these days where there's certain people in your life that are there for a short amount of time, and then there are certain people there for eternity, or until this life is gone. So it's a fun one, that
Yeah.
we've been through a good amount throughout the years now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we've gone through some struggles, but
For sure. For sure.
but tell us a little bit about your background from your parents. First of all, where are they from? What was the opportunity like in your town?
Yeah.
Give them a little bit of that.
Yeah. So starting with my dad, he grew up in a small town called Mansfield, Louisiana. And it sounds just like what you think it is. Nothing there. It sounds like nothing there. My dad is definitely from the country. He's always grown up around the country. He has two brothers, one younger sister. He's the second oldest. And yeah, always the family dynamic with him was always just kind of like my granddad was just like, you know, stay out of trouble. It was like just like a stay out of trouble mentality, because in Mansfield there was always trouble. I mean, there's really nothing to get into but trouble. He always makes this joke about how he was in school and he like, I guess he got a C in one of his classes, and one of his classmates was like teasing him like, "You got a C?" Like as like that was an accomplishment. And so that just shows you the type of like mentality you're around. So even the fact that he comes from something like that, to see where he is now just shows how blessed he is, and how much he really had to trust God in that process. My mom from a different, but also not very humble beginnings. My granddad, he was in the army, met my mother when he was in the war in Korea. Met my grandmother, sorry. And so that's how their family started. My mom, she kind of grew up in Germany when she was younger. Moved to the States in Columbus, and that's where she grew up. Went to high school and everything. Met my father. I believe they met when they were like in college. So as you can see, they both come from like different kind of family dynamics and backgrounds. But it's just crazy how, they were kind of brought together, and they started this family. My dad wasn't really, he was working at the Ledger Enquirer, which is a newspaper company. And so he's always been growing up, like he's always been like a businessman, kind of just selling stuff and trying to make ends meet was kind of like how he started off. With me growing up, we had a pretty humble background. Later on, my dad's, he kind of started working at a paper mill company that my grandfather was running. And so money wise, things were looking a little bit better finance wise. And so my family, as I'm in high school all the way up to college, we're kind of like getting used to this more, luxurious lifestyle per se. And then my dad kind of got a calling to be a pastor over my granddad's church. And so that's when we kind of took a different tour in life. And, money just wasn't coming in as readily and available as it always is. But my dad's always been business minded. So he's always been great with dealing with money. And I think that's one of the greatest things he's taught me is, not to look at money as like this god or like this thing that I need, like just to have an addiction to it, but treat it with respect. Like money is something that I feel like everybody should learn how to handle. before actually getting a lot of it. So
Right.
I appreciate the fact that he's taught me how to handle and use money, and just how to save and stuff like that. And so those are principles that I think I'll take with me no matter where I go, from here on out. And I appreciate that. But yeah, so that's kind of the background. They both had kind of like a Christian background growing
Hmm.
up in faith, and they just kind of expanded on that as they grew older. So yeah, and they've passed that down to us. And yeah, I just love the way my dad raised us, and my mom as well, and just how it's a real blessing, to have two parents in the household, especially as a black man in America.
Hmm.
I just feel like it's something that cannot be taken for granted, because
Absolutely not.
it's more and more common that it's not that way.
Somehow we've kind of understood that. I remember you telling me that, being mixed race, it is
Hmm.
hard.
Yeah.
Yes, you are black, but you have different types of ethnicities as well. That's in your background and your culture.
Hmm.
But sometimes it's hard for you, right? From some of the environments that you've been in, just kind of being able to explain your voice, or be able to voice out your
Yeah.
opinions.
Exactly.
We talked about that thing where
Yeah.
if you're light skinned, sometimes you don't have that much of a voice.
Yeah.
I understood what you were saying, but it was the first time that I understood what you were really going on, voicing about, because you've never voiced that out before, because you're so humble.
Yeah.
You usually keep things quiet. You don't complain. You just kind of let it go.
Yeah.
But during that situation, going back to it, what were your parents' backgrounds with college? Were you the first generational student?
I wasn't. Both of my parents graduated from college. My dad graduated from Columbus State with his
Mhm.
bachelor's, and my mom from Howard with her bachelor's.
Awesome. And
So
were they
yeah.
in medicine at all, or STEM at all?
No, my dad was actually, I forget what his major was. I know my mom was like in like speech therapy
Oh,
or something
okay.
like that. So I think she had plans on being like a speech therapy teacher in school. But I'm sure my dad was more along the lines of like finance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Way far off from
Yeah.
dentistry.
Yeah. Way far off. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so fast forwarding today, you're in dentistry school. So do you mind sharing where you go and all the stuff about how you like it so far?
Oh yeah. So I go to University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And so far I really do like it. I think Michigan has never been like on my radar of places to move.
Yeah, of course not.
But I feel like the school in itself, I mean, the support I'm getting from the school is, I just don't believe I would get it from anywhere else.
Yep.
When it comes to dental school, we have an amazing dean over the diversity, equity, inclusion, who has become a great mentor of mine, named Dr. Todd Esther. And just being able to grow in my relationship with him, and like, getting to actually, because I've talked to him on the phone before I made that commitment to Michigan, but just the fact that I'm there in Michigan, I'm seeing him every now and then. But yeah, just the fact that I'm there in Michigan, I'm seeing him, I know I'm being taken care of. I know that being at that school, him being at the school, is such a huge deal for the black community at that school. Just to see him in that position, seeing what he's doing to bring diversity to the school, what he's doing for SNDA. And for those who don't know, SNDA, Student National Dental Association, I know medicine has the same thing. It's called like SNMA, but it's essentially it's minorities in dentistry, minorities in medicine that come together in that club. But it's been like a big, black community within that in that organization as well. And just being able to have him there, it just makes the atmosphere and the community aspect of that school so much better for me, and so much better for my other classmates. So being there, meeting different people, and I'm a person who likes to intermingle with all people. I don't have any type of just like, oh, I don't mess with those people. But yeah, so I've make friends pretty easily with different groups and different backgrounds. And so just being there, I feel secure, I feel taken care of, and I feel like my mental health above all is taken care of at that school. So I've been enjoying that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So how important is it, just like you brought up, that the dean is behind you guys, especially like specifically Black
Yeah.
minority kids, you know, in this situation. So how important do you see that being?
It's very important. I feel like I've heard many stories about people who've been in dental school, been in medical school, and whether it was years ago when they were like, in the 90s, or if it's even recently, um, I hear stories about, certain professors, certain staff, they might treat them differently, based on the fact that they're Black. And, it's just those experiences. I feel like as our community, we just learn to deal with. We kind of just, it's there. It shouldn't be there, but it's stuff that we've dealt with. But to do it in dental school and to have to go through that in medical school can be tough. It's already rigorous coursework, on top of the fact that you're not getting along with your classmates because nobody in the class really understands you or
Right.
understands what you're going through. It's just a mess. And to
Yeah.
put yourself through that. And it's super important to know that if I feel like I'm being mistreated by a certain professor or staff member, or I know who to go to. I know who to go to. I don't have to worry about like, okay, are they going to believe me, or they going to hear me out? Because I've been in those situations before. And it feels like a helpless situation, because it's like, it's my word against theirs, and
Yeah.
nobody's going to really believe me at the end of the day. But to know that he's there, to know that if I do go through something like that, I can call on him. It makes my anxiety, everything like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. So it's a huge deal.
It becomes a domino effect.
Yeah.
You know, people think that, just because you have anxiety doesn't mean that more problems come out of it.
Yeah.
No, you have anxiety, you do bad on the test, you do bad in dental school.
Exactly.
It just goes on and on, right? You have to break the cycle.
Exactly.
But going back to that, what experience did you have that you felt insecure about, or just like you described?
Yeah. So growing up, especially in middle school, that was a hard time for me. Probably one of the hardest times for me. I went to a private school in Columbus, Georgia, called St. Luke. And, this is my first time being in a private school that I could remember, where, I'm definitely a minority. Like, there's no really other Black students
Right.
in the 6th grade or 7th grade with me. And so I definitely had coming there with some insecurities, and just, being different and feeling different from everybody else. So that definitely played a big role on just me being insecure in myself, throughout high school and such. And, one of those experiences I had was one of my teachers. I just always felt like school never really was that easy for me. And I felt less confident in myself academic wise when he would always like make comments about stuff. Because, sometimes I would doze off and, just not have the best attention. And he tried to like get my parents to say, he would be like, I think your son may have like ADHD or ADD.
Right.
And he just really can't focus. I think you should get him tested. And dang, I started thinking to myself, maybe I should really get tested. And, my parents, I didn't really know how to like stand up for myself, because I'm, young. I don't really
kid.
know. Yeah. And so my parents are, they're kind of like, well, do you need to get tested? You're not doing that well in this class and stuff like that. And it didn't make it better when he would like make remarks and stuff like that. Like when I did know an answer to a question, it would almost be like a surprise factor. And, the other classmates would pitch in and, make fun as well. And so it just added to my anxiety, and just kind of like, this made me think that, maybe school wasn't for me, and stuff like that. And so that was a hard time in my life, just getting through that and dealing with like harassment from a teacher and stuff like that. So
Yeah. And when you had like, you were the only Black kid, so I assume that it was mainly white
yeah.
kids. So when they were adding on to your topic, did you feel like it lessened your voice, during that time, especially with everybody around you?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I feel like I couldn't really, make call for help within that school.
Mhm.
And I couldn't like get my other classmates, because everybody else loved that teacher. Everybody else, he thought he was the coolest teacher ever.
Right.
So I'm just like, yeah, I don't see how I could convince anybody that he's just a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was crazy because he's even now today, my younger brother's in high school, and he teaches at that high school, and he has my younger brother.
Wow.
So he knows, like, my brother's always saying that he's always asking about me and stuff like that. And so I wonder what he's asking and stuff. So
yeah, the tables have turned.
yeah.
No, that's such a big part, right?
Yeah.
To get that story of we've all had that, especially I'm sure the listeners have had this, so I'm sure relating to that, it's a big deal. I've had teachers too that they were like, "Hey, you got some problems going on," and so back then, we would learn how to just kind of swipe it off our shoulders, but there's only so many times that can happen before it becomes a real problem,
Exactly.
So it's good that you found that environment at an early age versus now. Now you understand how to communicate with it. And even on top of that, you found an environment where you don't have to worry about that. Yes, it's different because the real world, people will say, this is the real world, where racism is big of it, but you don't have to worry about that. You've learned so many experiences throughout there that you don't have to go about it,
Exactly.
Which is good. But it can go either way, right, for people out there. So you're in D1 now. They call it M1 for the medical students, but D1 for the dentistry students. So you're in D1 now, and how do you feel about the rigorous part of school?
Yeah, so I definitely can talk about that. I feel like, so Michigan started off with the summer semester to give us, and that was like a lighter semester to kind of just introduce us into these classes. And yeah, we had a good amount of course load, but it was nothing really different from undergrad. So the fall semester, that's when it was actual dental school, and they integrated this thing called SimLab, where we're practicing doing drilling and filling on fake teeth. And so when you're focusing on that aspect along with your didactics, coursework, and studying, it's a lot. You have to balance what you spend your time on. I feel like the biggest thing about dental school and medical school and the curriculum, because they throw so much at you to study at one time, it's like they say trying to drink out of a fire hydrant.
Yep.
And it's true. It's a lot of information. I feel like my old study ways and study habits changed dramatically to where I just didn't have the time to do the stuff I used to have time to. I used to have time to read in textbooks, take notes out of the textbook, study those notes, and study the notes I had in class, and then make Quizlets. So that's a lot I would be doing for one class in, undergrad. And, if I started off trying to make Anki and Quizlets for the classes starting off, and I was just like, I just wasted an hour and a half, and I don't know what I just typed into this Anki. I can't remember. So I'm like, that seems like a waste of time, because now I have, instead of just 5 classes, I have like 12. So, and of course, not all of them require the same amount of studying.
Sure.
So that's another thing, realizing the course load, the courses that don't require that much studying, you can afford to study 2-3 days out, maybe even the night before. But the courses that are the big hitters, credit wise and just information wise. So those are the ones you have to constantly go back, look at the slides, and just do what you can. Look at other student study guides, taking advantage, because a lot of classmates will make study guides and note sheets, and I definitely take advantage of those and use those to study as well. So it's just finding out how to get through it, and finding out how much you want to do, as well as far as like how important a grade is to you is another important thing.
Right.
My goal is not to like necessarily specialize, so I may not be going as hard as other students when it comes to studying, even though I am studying hard.
Right.
But I might not be going as hard as other students. So it's just finding out what you want to do and what your end goal is, and then you figure out how much time you want to put into that. Because if I'm not studying, I'm taking care of myself, whether it's health wise, working out, running, or just socially, surrounding myself with people to keep my sanity. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the sanity is the most important part, right?
Yes, yes,
It's volume. The
yes.
classes, that's what it is. I know for medical students, it's very similar in that sense. If you're learning anatomy and physiology, going from there,
Yeah.
and now you got the sim lab on top of that, so
Hmm.
it's a lot. It's kind of hard to see how you go through it, but luckily I don't have to deal with that. So
Yeah.
I just watch it from a distance. That's it.
Yeah.
It's better that way.
Yeah, cheering people on from the stands.
Yeah, or get frightened so much that I just stay away. So yeah, that's a little gist of kind of dentistry school. We can go on and on about it.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to kind of bring it back to when we were at KSU.
Oh
I
yeah.
remember there was a time where you told me, yeah, I had a D in a class, or you had a D.
Yeah.
And it was on your report card or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
transcript.
Transcript,
And
yeah.
so during that time, I was thinking, dang, alrighty then. And you still applied to dental school,
Mhm.
and you got into 6 schools. You got accepted to 6 dentistry schools.
Yeah.
And so from there, that period, I was thinking, man, like what was going through your mind, after you got that D, and what was your experience like throughout that whole process?
Yeah, so my first D was in physics 1, and I will say it was very discouraging. I think around that time I was like trying to make alternate plans cuz I was like, should I even major in biology anymore? Or should I change it up and try to do like exercise science, maybe go into physical therapy? Because the way I guess, admissions officers from DCG, which is the Dental College of Georgia, and like this pre-dental students in my class, I mean, they were all A's and maybe occasional 2B's students. And everybody was freaking out. I knew people who quit dentistry because they got a C in that first chemistry class. That was really the first class where I was like, man, like maybe I should change my path when I got a C in chemistry 1, Gen Chem 1. It was a tough class. I felt like I studied pretty hard for that class and I still couldn't get through it with a B or an A, and I was like,
Right.
dang, this is tough. But I think honestly I figured out how to get. I think one thing I struggled with in high school that didn't help me was asking for help. I think like that pride aspect and just that I don't want people to know I'm struggling kept me from asking for help. And I think I got desperate and I was like, I need to start asking people for help. There was a person, me and you both know her,
Yep.
the president of the pre-dental club, straight 4.0 student.
Yep.
And I was just like, dang, like, how do you do this? What do you do to study for these classes? And she would tell me, what she did, and I would give them a try. I would like, maybe I should really start not studying a week, like 3 days before, but start studying, like right after the lectures and stuff like that, and just, studying as you go along. And yeah, after I did that, I know there was a little shine and a ray of hope, because even though that D in physics was there, which was really discouraging, I ended up getting, a B in OChem 1.
Yep.
And, it's just a B, but I remember the anxiety and like the fear I had of that class, because all the doctors back at home told me about their experience with OChem 1. One of them said they had to shadow in on a class before they took it, then took it, and then took it again just to get an A. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this course is really,
Yeah.
This is hard. This is a really hard course. But I think it's through that course. I don't think I did anything too crazy. But I realized that course, I may just not be the best at like, math. I think I'm more of a visual learner and like spatial learner and just like kind of seeing shapes and stuff like that. OChem brought that out of me, and I realized that I preferred that much more. And so just kind of learning that kind of helped me learn what type of learner I was. I had better study habits in that class, and that kind of boosted my confidence and gave me the edge I needed to do better in previous classes. So from there on out, that was like end of my first semester of junior year. From there on out, I was a completely different student. I was doing much better in classes, wasn't getting anything, below like a B. Really barely below a B on tests, but barely a B in class. Yeah, I wasn't getting below a B in classes, and did much better in cell bio. When I took that, and so those classes kind of gave me the confidence to know that, yeah, I think I can do this. My GPA isn't as competitive as others, but no, I feel like with the way I finished out, it shows my upward trend in classes. And also, I was really banking on my standardized tests, the DAT. I was like, if I can get a competitive score here, I think I have a shot. And so that kind of gave me the confidence to keep moving forward and realizing that I think this goal is obtainable. This is what I want to do. I don't have anything else I'd want to do in the medical field, so it's dentistry or nothing. So
yeah, that's a good point. Or McDonald's,
or McDonald's.
So what were your GPA and DAT scores, if you don't mind me asking? Just because people are probably in the same boat as you.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean. And it's great to hear from a colleague who's like, oh yeah, you got accepted.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely don't try to shy away from sharing those, because there's probably somebody out there right now who's like, I see it all the time on this little group me on Facebook. People freaking out about having 3 5s and getting a C in a class. I'm like, dang, I can't even tell you how many C's I got in undergrad. But yeah, here I am still, in dental school. But yeah, my GPA was like a 3.3 cumulative, and my DAT the first time I got was a 17 academic average, and then I took it again and got a 21 academic average. So that's a huge change. For those who don't know, the ranges, the highest score you can get on the DAT is a 30. In competitive ranges for most schools are like 21 and up. So,
wow.
Well, the average, but that's a competitive score. The averages are usually like 20 or 19. But yeah, that's like a competitive average.
Still pretty competitive though.
Yeah.
Because you went from 17, which was below average, right?
Yes.
And then you went up from there. Big difference.
Very big difference.
Yeah. And what type of characteristics did you see from your perspective that the schools were understanding that you were a great candidate for them?
I feel like what definitely helped me was, for one, I took 2 gap years. I graduated in 2020. And usually the route to go straight into dental school is the beginning of your senior year, like in August, that summer before you're supposed to have already applied to dental school. So that way your fall semester of your senior year, you're getting interviews. By the end of your fall semester, you should be hearing back from schools if you're accepted. And then you finish out your undergrad, your spring semester, and then you start dental school that summer. So that's how it goes traditional. I graduated 2020 in December, and then I applied that next summer. So I ended up taking like a gap year and a half or so. I think what I did in my gap year really helped me. I did a lot of community work. I worked in the medical field. I worked at an office as a receptionist. And then I was blessed with the opportunity to work as a dental assistant in a dental office. And I think just my experience being as an assistant really helped me give a meaningful personal statement. They really saw my passion for this, field. And, with my DAT scores, there was no question that, I could handle the course load. And seeing my upward trend, because towards my senior year, I was taking the hardest classes. I was taking biochem, cell biology, toxicology. So I was taking the more rigorous course load, and I was doing better than the regular biology courses. So they're seeing that, I can handle the course load. And that's not a question. It's just, he probably had a little, coming to realization moment, or, wasn't really taking it that seriously in the beginning. Seeing my DAT score was checking off that box. And then just seeing, like I said, I was able to write a meaningful personal statement. I did community work. I went out of the country and I did like dental work with a person who I do volunteer work with, and we like gave cleanings and extractions and did dental work on people in Ghana. So that also helped me as well. They're seeing that I truly have a passion for serving people in my community and outside of the country and stuff like that. So I think that overall made me a well-rounded candidate. Also, my involvement, I was treasurer of pre-dental club and kind of getting more involved. And I did a number of things through college. I was a peer leader, which I basically was just kind of like an older mentor for freshman students coming into Kennesaw. So I had some things kind of on my resume that I wasn't really clicking together until I started getting ready to apply. I was like, oh yeah, I did do that. So I think just putting as much as you possibly can on your resume really helps. On your application really helps. So,
Yeah. And your resume too. It goes
yeah,
on there too.
resume too.
So how did you get that position for dental assistant? That's not very easy to get. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious of what advice you have for somebody trying to get in that position.
Yeah, it's not easy to get because I mean most dental assistants or most dentists will be looking for a dental assistant to like have a certification, and so they already know that you're certified, you can do the work, they'll just hire you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking for people with experience. But I think I started off shadowing this dentist back at home and just being around the office all day. I eventually was able to find myself into a position. They were kind of short staffed and they needed somebody to help out in hygiene with the hygienist so that she could work more efficiently. So I started off kind of as a hygiene assistant, and what I would do was I would just prepare the rooms, set out the stuff for the operatories, and then while she would be finishing up with the patient, I would just like apply the prophy paste on the patient, and that would be the end of their appointment, and she's already moved on to the next patient. So I started off doing that. Also taking x-rays. I learned how to take x-rays there, and eventually I got promoted to being a dental assistant and helping out with that stuff. So I was working with the dentist, and it started off one procedure at a time. First it was just like new patient exams because all I could really do was take x-rays and chart down stuff in the chart for the dentist.
Yep.
But then eventually I started helping out with like a patient needing a class 2 or a class 3 filling, and I would set up the operatory for that. Then it moved to dentures. I started taking my first impressions, and then eventually crown preps. And so I eventually got to do, I would say, about 80% of what I guess the dental assistant would be dealing with. So I gained a lot of experience through that just over time. I would say if somebody's looking for a dental assisting position, if a dentist, is looking to just, let you shadow, and, if you have a good relationship with them, I think you can, eventually work yourself getting like a dental assisting position, just starting off, even if it's not for work, just asking, hey, can I, learn how to do this, learn how to do that. I feel like assisting for me helped me really solidify my passion for this field. It's just things that shadowing just won't do,
Yep.
just seeing it, but actually being involved with it is just different. You see the patient care aspect of everything, that the patient is being taken care of from the moment they're taken from the chair. It's not just the dentist's job, it's the dental assistant's job, it's the receptionist's job, it's the hygiene's job. That patient wants to feel taken care of from the moment they walk in that building to the moment they walk out. People already have dental anxiety, so they're already like nervous as hell going into that office. So
Yes.
it's important for every aspect of their experience to be enjoyable. And I guess just learning that and seeing how an office runs was just like, oh yes, this is for me. This is what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're hoping when you go out to the dentistry world, you'll come back here.
Oh yeah.
Because my wife, she has a fear for on her own thing. So that's why when you come back, we're looking for you to get her set up correctly.
Gotcha. We'll take care of her.
There you go.
This time.
But yeah, so do you feel like that dental assistant position excelled you in your program?
I feel like it did, in sense of like the hands-on aspect of dentistry. We haven't started taking x-rays on each other. I think we do that my second year, but I know I'm going to have like a hand up in that. Gonna have a hand up in just like using a mirror. I feel like using a mirror was pretty helpful for me. There was a lot of times when the dentist would get me to look at something in the mouth, and I would grab the mirror, and so using that inverted, I think it's called inverted vision,
right?
Whatever, with the mirror is something that kind of came naturally when I got into SimLab. It was weird. It was the weirdest thing because Michigan, I know other dental schools, they'll have you like practicing with the mirror on a piece of paper, and you're like drawing or like coloring in a shape using the inverted mirror. So you have to learn that motion. But we started off on our first class 3 filling, which is like a filling on the back side of your front teeth, on the proximal side. So I just went at it, and I was like, wow, I'm kind of just doing this naturally. Like I've already been used to that before. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't really have that big of a learning curve for that aspect of it, that filling. So yeah.
Well, it's a hand motor skill,
Yeah.
I know it's funny to say, but when you're athletic, that does come in handy.
Yeah,
it really does. People don't really understand that as much, but
Mhm.
your hand and eye coordination are so much better. Like
It is.
I noticed my friend, he plays pickleball.
Yeah.
And I play pickleball, but I was trying to see the difference because he's in dentistry school too.
Mhm.
And so when I was asking him, like, what have you noticed? He said, before I was playing pickleball and I was working on the sim labs, he's like, I didn't really have a technique to it. He said after I started playing pickleball for like a year or 2 years, he's like, my hand and eye coordination are perfect. And yes, it comes with practice, right? But the fact that it kind of came naturally to him afterwards it was pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, that's one way to do it. Nice. Seems like in your situation, yours the same way too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would say the main point of this whole area is definitely like if you want to succeed in dental school, play pickleball.
There you go.
Get good at that. Yeah.
Tom Brady's opening a pickleball league, so now's the time.
Yeah.
You used to play baseball.
Yeah,
right?
I used to play baseball, but I think the main thing for my hand-eye coordination would be golf. I feel like I played golf more so in high school and middle school and even college. So I feel like that aspect of hand-eye coordination is showing up in dental school even. So yeah.
What's your handicap?
Probably say plus 15. Yeah,
okay.
Plus 15,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll go with it.
Yeah.
I don't know my handicap, so I'm just gonna let it be there. Okay?
Yeah.
I'll tell you that I can hit a mean ball in Topgolf. You know that.
Oh yeah. I've seen it. You still gotta go to Putt Shack.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Never mind. Putt Shack. Funny name we put for that one. So speaking of like golf and what you do baseball wise or athletic wise, what do you do outside of dental school? When you have the time for it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, this summer I was finding myself playing a lot of golf, and I think that's gonna be my thing and my out, just playing golf on the weekends with some of my classmates and just by myself. I just like being out there, hitting the ball and just having something to work on and improve is cool. I like to work out, like to weightlift and stuff like that. So getting into that is important to me. Like to draw when I have time. I wish I had more time to draw. I do. I just don't have the time because I'm finding time to do other stuff. So yeah, it's just a matter of finding that time to do that to yourself. But other than that, just hanging out with people on the weekends and going out for a drink or so or two.
Yep.
Stuff that I like to do. So.
It's a good way to go. Have you seen the new Avatar yet? I know it's not part of anime, but
no, I did see it. That was a really good movie.
It was good, man.
I don't know what these other people are talking about, but I enjoyed it.
I thought it was better than the first one.
Yeah, I did too.
But people like my brother-in-laws and my wife were like, "Nah, it wasn't
thought the
that
first
good."
one was better.
Yeah, which is I don't know. This one was it was longer.
Yeah,
but it was definitely a lot. There was a lot more action in it.
Yeah, he went all out with the graphics and the CGI.
Oh man,
that was
dude. A lot of it looks it looks so real.
So real.
I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could watch it again though, because 3.5 hours is like
That's a long movie.
That's a long time.
You already heard about the length of the other two. It's
I
like
know,
3
right?
times long. I don't. We're gonna have to cut
9-hour sequel. Let's go.
Like I don't know how I'm gonna have to take an intermission in between that movie or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know how they're gonna do it, but it seemed good. It's just there's only so many Anki decks you have to go through. and 3.5 hours sounds like a really good time to get through all of them.
Exactly.
So it's pretty good. Now, getting back to it, this is a big part of dentistry school because people don't get to hear that as much. It's kind of weird. People hear dentistry school and they don't think much of it, So why did you choose dentistry school from the MD or the DO route?
Yeah, so I chose dental school. My first initial reason to go into dentistry was because I thought I wanted to be an orthodontist. I had shadow orthodontist, and I was just like, man, I just feel like you can live such a great life being in this field. It's very flexible. Being a doctor for me, for one, I didn't want that extreme responsibility over someone's life. I felt like the most fulfilling thing to do as a doctor would be a surgeon, and I didn't know how I felt about operating on people's bodies. And I know that's weird to say because I'm fine with operating people's mouths, but
right,
just different body parts, and I just felt like I don't know if that would gross me out or if I just felt like that wasn't very personal to me. And so
agreed.
that was something that kind of steered me away from going to MD or the DO route. And so I knew dentistry was probably going to be a more, fulfilling role for me because I always figured I'd be like a business person, and I felt like dentistry allowed me to have my own business. Once again, back to the hours, more doable hours, not having to be called in at 2 a.m. to go on call for something. So yeah, I just felt like that flexibility and that lifestyle that dentistry provided was better for me. The reason I didn't want to specialize and go into ortho was because they weren't really doing much throughout the day. Orthodontists are very, very very knowledgeable in their field and very skilled, but I noticed it was more so a lot of treatment planning and behind the scenes type of work that an orthodontist would do. And mainly most of their patients are going to be like children and people just getting braces, so I kind of wanted like a variety in my patient age gap and stuff like that. I think general dentistry just is where I wanted to go because it allows me to do multiple things, multiple different procedures, have a different age range of people, and then kind of just build that patient relationship with those patients and stuff like that. And also kind of has its own little artistic thing to it, building up a tooth and looking and paying attention to how, the color of a tooth looks like that. We're learning about that right now. Or we have learned about that in a class called biomaterials, and you're learning about how to choose the shade of a tooth, color filling, and to where it looks like it's the natural tooth color under natural light. And so all that stuff was, cool to learn, and seeing how very detailed cosmetic dentists would have to be. And so stuff like that was really intriguing to me. So yeah, I think that's probably the route I wanted to take. So, yeah.
And, this is something that many people maybe don't talk about, but should talk about is it's a controversial part, but kind of the pay, right? There is a pay difference. And obviously you're not going in to medicine to get paid.
Yeah.
That's not the main reason why you're going. It is a secondary part or a tertiary part to it. First is taking care of the people and kind of your personality matching up with that. Yeah. But you look at the dentistry route and you look at the MD and DO route, the insurances are very different when it comes to billing. When it comes to dentistry, there's a lot more out-of-pocket pay compared to, MDs and DOs, whereas insurance tries to take over 80% of it, whatever you want to call it.
For sure.
But I'm sure you've seen in the billing side as a dentist assistant, insurances don't pay that much these days for dentistry work. So that makes a difference too. It makes a lifestyle of a difference.
It does.
And I think people kind of need to understand that, because that is a big factor. Whether you want to agree with it or not, especially you or, any dentistry student, they're going into that field knowing that they're going to be $500,000 in debt.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is, but it's you have to kind of balance both of the things, because when you want to start a family, now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And you have to figure that part out. So
Exactly.
now what you did, which it just kind of sparked my thoughts, is you're in a program right now for like loan payment forgiveness, similar in that. Can you go into a little explanation about that?
Yeah, so what I applied for the National Health Service Corps scholarship. I found out about this, I feel like a few months before I no, probably a few months after I accepted my admissions into Michigan, and I was like, it was either this or the art or the Navy scholarship for me that I was like, okay, maybe I can use these to like offset the decision I made to pay way more,
Yeah.
be in much more debt rather than staying here in Georgia. Um, so I applied to that scholarship. I was like, this is a scholarship that'll pay for my college. They'll pay for my tuition and they'll give me a limited stipend each month to live off of. And I feel like that's a much better option than just like not, applying or, just going to Augusta and just accepting the loans. Because one, this place, it's not like I have to go wherever they tell me. I just have to work at a FQHC, which is kind of like a certified, health clinic. I've seen plenty of them. And, I make a commitment to work at one of those and I choose, at the end of my 4 years of dental school to go. The downside is you can't be a specialist. So they don't want you specializing going to like oral maxillofacial school.
Yep.
Or endodontistry after you finish dental school. I think the only one you can do is pediatric dentistry.
Okay. Yep.
And so you can do that and still work for them. But yeah, if you wanted to specialize, your path would look more like you finish dental school, you go work for them for 4 years, then you apply to your specialty program and do that. So yeah, I wanted to do this especially because I'm like, well, I'm helping a population that needs dental care. They probably don't have good relationships with the dentist. This is going to get my practice in for when I do, go out and serve my community for people who might not be seeing the dentist regularly. And it gives me that kind of that, fulfillment in my career already right off the bat. So I was like, wow, this sounds like a great opportunity. So I applied for that immediately. It wasn't nearly as hard as applying to dental school.
Yeah, right.
Dental school wanted everything, which understandable. I only had to answer like 3 essay questions,
Right.
give like a CV or a resume, and like 2 letters of recommendation. And thankfully, those letters of recommendation were enough for me to get the scholarship. And I'm now under contract to work for one of those FQHCs after I finish. And even if I do have to take out, like loans to live, there's a big difference between $15,000 and $260,000.
Big difference.
For sure, especially with interest and stuff like that. So
absolutely. Yeah.
that was
interest will get you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it will.
And it's going to add up. Like,
it does.
A lot of times people don't even see like these MDs and DOs. Like they may have taken on $250,000, $300,000 in debt, but
Yeah.
it just continues to grow. I met one guy who was actually talking to me. And he was like, "Yep, it's pretty difficult right now because he started off with $250 and now he's up to $350,000 on his debt." So he's and this was over a 10-year period, by the way. So he's paid it off down to 100,000, whatever the case is, and he's still back up because of how much compounding interest is.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's a lot.
They shouldn't even be able to do that, really. But yeah. So you do they basically give you 4 years worth of salary or stipends in a sense, and then you give 4 years back to them, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you still have to do residency in dentistry school?
You don't. You can. That's one of the great things about dental school. Once you finish those 4 years, you can go straight in and work. But nowadays, I guess it's not really recommended because there's so much that's been added to the field, and dentists are really recommending younger dentists to get your feet wet in dentistry before you go in and work, because there's only so much that you're allowed to do in dental school. Like there's certain procedures that I may never get to touch, or I only see one time. And if I do a 1-year residency and work at a GPR or an AEGD, I'll be able to, do more of those procedures within that time. I'll get more comfortable with timing in my procedures, and my hand skills will be more refined. And I plan on doing that. That's another thing I can do before I go and work. So I plan on doing that before I go out and work for the FQHC. So
Gotcha.
that's just something I want to do because I want to be really comfortable as possible once I actually start working and my my career is on the line.
Yeah, right.
Before I get into somebody's mouth. So yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to like private practice, I've noticed that there are kind of two ways. You can either go join a franchise or you start your own practice.
Yeah.
Right? Have you seen it vary any other way than that?
Yeah, I definitely see there's a trend in dentistry. More so now, it's preferred for to buy a practice instead of starting one up. I feel like the reason for that is because people are noticing dental school is way more expensive than it used to be.
Yep.
I used to work for this dentist who said that at the end of his 4 years, he owed like $10,000 or $15,000 in debt. Like that's all. And so he started a practice right after dental school, which it's just more doable than because you just didn't have as much debt to worry about. And whereas now, you're getting out of dental school $250K plus in debt. And I don't even want to, there's some dental schools that are literally like $450K.
Yep.
And that's before the interest and anything. And I'm just like, how could you, I don't know how you could even dream of paying that off within a reasonable amount of time. And so, so starting a practice up, requires a building, it requires staff, it requires patience, equipment. I don't even want to get into how expensive dental equipment is. Some of these monitors and x-rays are more expensive than probably a Mercedes.
Yeah,
and
it
it's
is.
just that's just the way it is. So practice acquisition is like the most preferred route of doing it now, and that's what I probably see myself doing once I'm ready to have my own practice. So
yeah, well, if you have the capital for it, it makes a big difference because overhead is the biggest part, right?
Yes.
Paying your employees, that is the biggest part of it in general. And when you're starting from scratch, you're starting from a brand new LLC. And for those who don't understand the difficulty, not just starting an LLC, but like covering everything from there, getting an attorney, malpractice, everything you can think of, it's basically starting on its own. But if you could buy a practice, it's a little bit easier. It's not that much easier, but it still saves you a lot more headaches and it gives you a step ahead. Yeah. But you have to have the capital for that. Exactly. Which is different. But that would be good for you to even kind of go down that route, Be a huge benefit for you and just kind of quicker on the taking care of patients. Yeah. So that's a big part of it. Now, when it comes to just kind of being your younger self, what advice would you have to give yourself if you had to do it all over again? I feel like the advice I give my younger self is like find balance in your life, find balance with hanging out with friends and doing your work. Because my 2 years, the first 2 years of my college career looked totally different than my last two. It was just my first 2 years, I was goofing off, just partying, not really worried about school like that. And I kind of was realizing that I was like, dang, I'm really not taking these classes that seriously. And my last 2 years was more so just me being on the grind and making up for that. And there's a lot of things I feel like I missed, a lot of hangouts and stuff, and a lot of different opportunities. Like I remember that time you guys went skiing and I gave up going to that because I had a test to study for and stuff like that, which is all understandable. But, sometimes you got to ask, is this, my mental health more important or is this grade more important, stuff like that. So I wish I had found that balance earlier on in college and, found my crew. I found myself the first 2 years just really trying to find my group of people, to hang out with and stuff like that before I met you guys. And so, I really didn't have like a crew or a group of people that I, bonded with or,
I felt like I could be myself around. And so, yeah, I would also just encourage myself to find that balance so that I was, out more with a more positive crowd
Mm-hmm.
and just, finding that time, that downtime to socialize and stuff like that. And then, get back to the grind during the weekdays and stuff like that. So,
It's hard too, because when you want to get out to an environment where you want to talk to somebody, right? It's
mm-hmm.
intimidating, especially when you're in a new college or you're trying to start a new path,
Yeah,
because you don't know what that person's gonna say to you. So
exactly.
it was always hard. I remember we were both talking about that it took some time for us to find some actual friends who were willing to talk. Especially at our university, it was so big that
Yeah.
you couldn't really find somebody directly like the first try. It took some time, but
Oh, yeah.
I found out that it would be much easier to just go ahead and rip off the band-aid, go say hi. And if
Mm-hmm.
they were not in for it, okay, sounds good. Walk over to the next one. But I used to be so scared of that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people get into that. I would just kind of go up to them and be a little intimidated. But now it's more like, okay, hey, like if you want to talk, we can talk. If not, all right, I'll go this way and
Yeah.
you go that way. But it's good. The insecurity of having that first and kind of practicing that is a great
Mm-hmm.
way to go. And the
Exactly.
balance, you're right. Like that is such a hard part in medicine and the STEM field, because it's a competitive environment. First of all,
Mm-hmm.
let's not like
Yeah.
sugarcoat it. It is a very difficult field, especially the dentistry field, and not that everybody's out there to get you, but everybody's worried about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They have to get into the dentistry school, and if your friend gets an acceptance, it doesn't really, you're happy for them, but also at the same time you also have to worry about yourself. That's the mentality, right? It
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be that way. You should be happy for your friends just like you are,
Yeah.
for all of us, in that situation, the group that we have. But that's where the common theme comes in. And you're right, like you have to be able to balance that and learn that there are some times where you should go hang out with somebody or your family or take a break from schooling, because it's always going to be there. And you're a perfect example of why a D doesn't matter. You would
Yeah.
think that a D in physics and a C in Gen Chem would make the difference. And technically, from what other people on Reddit would say, they would say, "Man, this guy ain't getting accepted to any
Yeah.
schools."
Yeah.
And look, you're at 6 dentistry schools acceptances.
Yeah.
That's a crazy number, dude.
Yeah. No.
It really is. Like, what was your experience when you got those 6 acceptances? Like, how did you feel?
I was just like, man, I felt so blessed because I know I went from a place where just, I was just like, I hope I get into at least one school. Like, I don't know where, but at least I'll go somewhere. But I realized, I was interviewing really well. I think that's another thing. My interviewing was really good
Mm-hmm.
with these schools. I think people sometimes get in their own head and they may not have the confidence to think that, oh, I'll get into this school. And they carry that into the interview. And that interviewer can see that lack of confidence, and they may not know it, but these people are trained for this. That's why they're in a position to interview you. And so even though, you might look good on paper, you might look good, you might look good on paper, but, they see you in person and they're like, this person may not be fit for this field because they will be torn down. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this school will humble you because, medical school, dental school, PA school is going to throw a whole bunch of rigorous coursework at you, and you're not going to always get the grade you want. And when they see that you're somebody like, oh, this kid's never gotten a B, never gotten a C, I wonder how they're going to act once,
Right.
that first practical grade, because that's something that you just can't prepare for
Mm-hmm.
in sim lab. Like, you could mess around, slip up with the drill, you mess up the tooth, you turn that in, that's a failing grade. And that could be the first F they ever see. They take all that into account before they accept people. But when they see somebody who's been through something, they see somebody who's taken L's, know what it's like, but also knows what it's like to not give up. I think that's something, the determining spirit to not give up and to strive for what you want. I think that's what they saw in my application, and that's what they saw in me, because I truly believed it myself. By the time it got to actually interview,
Mm-hmm.
I was confident. I was like, I do deserve to be here because of what I've been through and what I have to offer in this field. I not to be arrogant, but I was like, I don't feel like many people have
Yeah.
that type of, determination. I don't feel like they have what I have to offer to this profession, not just in the office chair, but also outside and influencing the community, stuff like that. I take all that into account because I know that's what is my responsibility as a professional one day to do, to give back to my community and to help other people get into dental school. So I feel like they took all that into consideration because the schools I applied to were very clinical based instead of like research based, except for Michigan. They're
Yeah.
they're the number one, research based school. So that's the only one, but they are also really good in clinic. So I think that's what they saw, and that kind of helped me bring my competitiveness as an applicant up. So
Yeah, well, you got to be confident,
yeah,
you're right. Arrogant is one thing, but being
yeah,
confident is very different.
yes, it's very
And there's a fine line between both,
mm-hmm.
If you're treading on it, you have to be careful. But I love the way that you bring it up because you just state a fact. That's it. That's all it is. The grit that you have. For those people that know you, they know, or we know, the situations that you've been through and the accomplishments that you're in now. Yeah. It's insane to see where you are today. It's amazing. That's really what it is. Now, what advice would you have for those who are listening? We don't know really if these are undergrads or getting into it, or maybe non-traditional students, but what is your take after all you've done so far into trying to get into medical school or dental school?
Yeah, man. Well, my advice for anybody who's, listening, whether you're even in the medical field or not, it's just to really find what you're passionate about. And that sounds so like cliche, but
right,
it's so true. You really got to find what you want to do and do whatever it takes, to reach that goal. I mean, everybody's coming from different backgrounds and different available resources, and I know it's not always the easiest, but I would encourage people to find mentors too. Mentors in their life, whether it's, an uncle or a good friend of your family, a godparent. Find a good mentor and listen to what they have to say. I feel like a lot of listening is what I was doing, leading up to this progress. I just started soaking in information from others. It wasn't something I did well when I was younger, but as I got older and matured, I realized, I don't know everything. I really don't know a lot, so I need to ask I need other people's help. I had to accept that, and so I would advise people to get as much help as possible. If you don't know what you're passionate about, do a lot of research and figure out, what you like, what sparks your interest, what gets you up every morning, and go at that. A lot of people are, some people might want to be a fitness influencer or, have their own, fitness gym. That's something that I feel like if you have that passion for, you can obtain it because you're going to do whatever it takes. Almost like that mindset of like, if I don't do this, I don't know what else I'm going to do. I feel like I didn't really have a lot of backup plans when it came to my career. So I did everything I could to make sure that I was going into this. I remember graduating from college and I was like, I don't want to just sit around because I knew people who were like putting off dental school and they're just like, yeah, I'll apply, probably 2 years from now. I was like, no, I don't want to wait and just keep waiting and keep. I didn't want to go back to school again and take in more debt to undergrad to, further my career. So I was like, I really had to do good on this DAT so I could apply. So I would just say, find that grit, find what gets you moving. And, that's how, I pursued my goals, and I'm continuing to do it, so yeah.
Yeah, man, that's the way to put it. I mean, it's well said. It just has to be done that way. Do your passion. Yep. It sucks to hear, that cliche so many times, but now going through it, and learning that some of these jobs are just not the right one, you learn over time that maybe you should really learn or listen to what your goal is. Really, it's all in your mind, man. Subconscious. But yeah, man, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Do you have any information for anybody that's reaching out to you, or you want us to put that link in the description?
Oh yeah, you can put the link in the description, but yeah, I'll just give my Instagram and Facebook on that link. So yeah,
Perfect, man. All right, you ready to eat some food now?
yes, I'm starting.
Man, let's go. Let's get going. I appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks
No
again.
problem. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.